We have here today on the Moms Without Capes podcast, Kare Maryn. Welcome to the show, Kare.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. So Kare is a kitchen coach who teaches moms her proven 4-step meal planning framework that allows you to enjoy a fresh home-cooked meal 4 nights out of the week without any mealtime drama, so you can feel calm and connected to your family around the dinner table. Sounds amazing, right? Today, Kare and I will be chatting all about meal planning and how it can help make dinner time one of your favorite parts of the day. So Kare, before we dive in, Kare and I actually know each other outside of like Moms Without Capes. We are clients together in another coaching program, like in a business coaching program. So when I first heard about what Kare was doing or what she specializes in, I knew that it was going to be something that would help us super moms be able to free up some time and make meal planning or even like time in the kitchen less of a chore and more something that we can actually even enjoy doing. And I always dabble in meal planning. So I'm excited to talk to you today because it's something that I just struggle with keeping consistent. But before we get into that, let's talk about your journey and how you got to be where you are today and the specialist you are today.
All righty. Well, I have always liked to cook. I mean, as an adult, like I didn't learn how to cook growing up. Like my mom didn't teach me how to cook. My grandma didn't teach me how to cook. So I always say that is definitely not a prerequisite for easy meal planning, but I do like to cook. And so I cooked kind of as a hobby. And then I had a 7-year journey where I was vegan, and that was super fun cooking, like, cause you use all new ingredients, right? And experimenting. And so friends were like, oh, well, I went gluten-free. Could you make this? Or I'm dairy-free. Could you make this? And so I started cooking for friends, and then kind of word of mouth spread. And so then I started cooking for families. They were like, I don't want to cook for my family, or I don't know how, or this is too hard. And so I was in the kitchen of busy moms and looking like front lines, like what's hard about this? What is in your way? Why does this feel like a chore, to your point? So, I got a lot of good information, cooking for them. Meanwhile, like I'm cooking for them, and that's organized, right? Because that's my business.
Right.
I'm sure people can relate to this. And then at home, like my meal planning, not as organized.
Right.
And I thought, you know what, this isn't really working well. So that is when I created my 4-step framework. I really created it for my own kitchen and then started using it with my clients as well. And so that's, I had time to try it and test it and, kind of see what it needed and perfect it. So then we adopted our daughter, and I had a lot less time all of a sudden.
As it falls, yeah.
So I didn't have time to do all the cooking, and luckily
I didn't realize that was all before, because I was thinking like, wow, how did you have time to cook everybody else's meals?
Yeah, exactly.
But so yeah, I'm glad you made that distinguish.
Yes, exactly. I am cooking for other people until we adopted our daughter. And then I was like, I don't have much time left. So that's when I transitioned my business online and became a kitchen coach virtually for moms, but taking all that rich information I learned and my system and teaching it.
Nice. So how long have you been doing what you're doing? Like the online piece?
So my daughter's 4.5.
Okay.
So yeah. So, I mean, really like probably 4 years, you start an online business and you're just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
You got to figure out the business part, but kind of in a groove, probably about 4 years. Yeah.
Were you cooking before you became a mom? Were you cooking? Because you said you were like in the kitchens of like busy moms. Like when you became a mom, were you like finally like, I get it. Like I get why, like things that as like a childless or like a single mom or a single woman, like not knowing the challenges.
I definitely was like, oh yeah, this is harder. I do have less time. Like you have to be more organized, but I really already had a system in place. And so, I mean, I think as a baby, I didn't really get it as much, but, and I will say one thing that really kind of shed light on a lot of what I do with moms now is our daughter is adopted. And so I was not breastfeeding, right? And the pressure to breastfeed and like, it like opened my eyes a little bit more to like, there is so much pressure on women and moms to like feed your kids like perfectly, whatever that means. And it starts with breastfeeding and it didn't stop, right? It doesn't start, it doesn't stop. And so that is definitely something I encounter with my clients that, to your point, I did learn when we had our daughter is like, there is a lot of pressure out there coming at you from multiple directions, right? And so that is one of the things that absolutely impacts mom's meal planning. So I did get some good insight into that. And then now that she's 4.5, and has her own ideas of what she wants to eat, what she doesn't. So I'm learning those things as I go. But yeah, it's been a great journey.
What have you found that moms or yourself or the moms that you work with find the most challenging or the most hardest thing about meal planning specifically?
Oh, that's a good question. The hardest part, probably making it last. And like and like blaming yourself for it. Like, oh, I didn't stick to this habit, or
like being consistent. That's my problem.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of things out there about meal planning. And, when I talk to moms, well, what have you tried that hasn't stuck? And they're like, telling him, and I'm like, that makes total sense. Like it's generic, or it doesn't work with your schedule, or it's XYZ. Of course it didn't stick, and when you get something that works for you, then it sticks because you like the outcome and it feels good and it overcomes the things that, you were resisting about meal planning. So, but I would say that's the biggest thing that moms come to me with and say, I've tried this before. I've tried multiple things before and they just don't last. Right. And so basically, why are you different? Why can you make it last? And so that's what we work on.
So when you're new, like when you're talking with one of those moms, because that's me right there, like just not, I feel like I've tried it multiple times. Like I've been a mom for 23 years and throughout those 23 years, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to meal plan. Like I hear how easy it is. I hear how it's like it's game changer in the kitchen, but yet making it stick is one of the problems that I have. So when you are working with one of those moms that have tried things in the past, where do you recommend we start?
Great question. So I have kind of a three-pronged, like consider these three things as you look ahead to starting to meal plan. And one of them is to start small. We have this idea that meal planning is all or nothing, right? I have to plan 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for the foreseeable future, right? And we get that in our mind for whatever reason. And that's not helpful because nobody wants to do that, right? And it's like with any goal, you don't start by running the marathon, you start by, walking or running. Right. So to start smaller, like start with dinner is usually what people come to me with first. I do all the meals, once you have a habit, then you can apply it to the other meals, but dinner is what people really tend to want to transform first. And so we start with like 1 or 2 dinners, right? Whatever you're doing now, just keep doing that, even though it's not the outcome you want. We're in the process of changing it, and just take a day or 2 and start there. And so that relieves a lot of weight, right? Because you can start at something that's very doable. And then the second one is start earlier. I find that moms don't start meal planning often until like Sunday night, right? And then next day's Monday.
Right.
So, again, you're just not really setting yourself up for success. So in my world, we have what's called Think Ahead Thursday. And this is a term that I coined because my system, I start on Thursday thinking about recipes for the next week. And so that gives you Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
To digest it and grocery shop and do all the things like to prepare for.
Exactly. And Thursday is exactly what it sounds like. You're not prepping them. You're not going grocery shopping. You're not prepping ingredients. You're thinking about it. What recipes do I want to make? And what a rock star would you feel like and ahead of the game if Friday you were like, I know what we're eating next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's just these like small steps of accomplishment and just getting out ahead of yourself. Part of what is stress, I find that moms find stressful about meal planning is as the beginning of a new week is like approaching, it's like you have to figure it out all over again.
Yeah.
It's like every week is a brand new week and a brand new meal planning problem. And it, that it just doesn't have to be that way when you have, a system that does get you started earlier. And so then, Thursdays, I choose recipes. Friday, I make the grocery list. Saturday, I shop. Sunday, I prep. Like you just break it down into these small habits, which is the third prong is make it a habit, right? We have to make these things integrate into our life. And this is something else that lifts a really big weight when I talk to moms and I'm like, this is going to flow in your schedule, right? It's not going to be this like, okay, I've got to schedule this, 3 hours or it's not this like big thing that you have to tackle because that makes it heavy and that makes it stressful. Right. And so when you can make it a small habit that you do throughout the week, then it flows. It just flows, integrates. I like to say it kind of runs in the background of your life.
Okay. It's less daunting.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bird's eye view of the 4-step framework that you walk clients through?
Yes. So it's called the CRISP framework. And it's 5 letters, but
I was just thinking my fingers were moving down here. I'm like, I think that's 5.
The C and the R go together.
Okay.
So on Thursdays, on Think Ahead Thursday, I look at my calendar, which is the C, and I choose recipes, which is the R. So I'm going to make this actually work for my life, right? Because this is one of the things that's going to make it stick. So I look ahead to my next week and I say, is there anything weird about dinner time? Like, are we going to grandpa's? Are we all, I don't know, whatever you do at night that might change dinner time?
Right.
Or do I have a really busy day at work and I need to give myself a crock pot recipe that I'm just going to dump and go, right? And so I'm actually thinking about my week and then I'm choosing recipes. So if there is a day that if there's a day I have a little bit more time, then maybe I know this recipe that my family likes that does take me a little bit more time. Maybe I'll put it on that day, right? And in the beginning, you don't necessarily, maybe you don't know the recipes that well, or you're not that comfortable in the kitchen, and that's okay because this part comes. But the whole thing about all of this is simply establishing the habit. Like, even if you open your calendar on Thursday and you're like, okay, I see my schedule and here's some recipes. I don't know enough about these recipes to know, like, that's okay. What you're doing is establishing the habit, right?
Right. The habit of actually doing that.
Yeah. And so you get in the routine. And I tell people, and I do this myself, even though this is my business, I've been doing this for years. I have a reminder that pops up on my phone every Thursday and it says start meal planning.
Okay.
Right. And so it's just, again, giving you that head start. So this takes 10 or 15 minutes, right? And I know that everybody, if this is a goal of yours, you have that amount of time, right? It comes down to, are you going to give it? Are you going to give it to meal planning? So 10 or 15 minutes on Thursday. Friday, I make a grocery list because I've chosen my recipes. And so now I can make my grocery list and I just cross-check my kitchen so I'm not double buying anything. And again, you're looking at 10 or 15 minutes, right? And the more you do this, the faster it happens. So that's all you do on Friday. Then Saturday, I grocery shop, and that takes, a different amount of time for different people, whether you order them online or like to go to the store like I do, whatever that is. But I shop with my streamlined grocery list. So it's a lot faster. I'm not impulse buying. I'm saving money. And then prep. So I probably lost the crisp in there, but Friday is ingredients. So make my grocery list. S is shop.
You did. Yeah. I was like,
and then P is prep. And so this is another thing that sometimes we have recipes and we go and get the ingredients and then it falls apart, right? Because you still have to stick with the habit, right? Yes. And so the prep part, but again, set an alarm on your phone for 15 minutes and go into your kitchen and look at the first recipe that you're going to make of the week and prep the ingredients that are in it. You'd be amazed at how much prep you can get done in 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And so I do a short prep session on Saturday. When I get home with my groceries, I don't even put them away. I start prepping them straight from the bag. And in just 10 or 15 minutes, I've got, let's say, the meat seasoned and browned for Taco Tuesday and the onions and the tomatoes diced. Right. Then
Yes.
on Sunday, I do another 10 or 15-minute prep session. And then
Okay.
Monday night, when my recipe's cooking, it's hands-off time. I'm prepping for Tuesday. Right. And so it's just these small amounts of time that when you put in them into your schedule, it doesn't feel daunting. It is a habit that you have to repeat. Right.
Right.
But when you get that down and you integrate those prep sessions or the recipe choosing or whatever into your schedule, then it flows, and no one step is just like, oh my gosh, this is too big,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So your eye, is that inventory? Is that
Ingredients.
what the ingredients? Okay. I was like,
Yep.
I know it was the day of like looking to see. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Making your
I'm
grocery list and then checking. Yeah.
okay. Ingredients.
Yep.
So I'm just thinking, because as I mentioned, consistency is that hard part for me. And I
Mhm.
have been able to do it. I love the idea of just when you're starting, like just do 2 days a week, right? Like just plan for 2 days a week. And I've gotten to the point where I do look at my calendar. I've got it right next. I have a dry erase board with like Sunday through Saturday that I just kind of jot down what days. Some days I leave empty, like our Saturdays and Sunday, or our Fridays and Saturdays tend to be just whatever. Thursdays are leftovers. Typically we have leftovers, or just something like quesadillas or like something really easy but I have gotten into that habit of looking at the calendar and seeing, and even I was doing it with my daughter this past week, and we were coming up with some meals, and we were like, and I'm like, well, this is going to be a day that I'm really busy, and I need something that you guys can at least start preparing while, like, to the kids while I'm out of the house.
Excellent.
So like we stick to things like spaghetti or the quesadillas again, or bag salads, where I'm like, you just have to add the extra spring mix and all that, like trying to make it as easy. But when I started comparing it with or like holding it up against the calendar and considering that, I found that made it a lot easier for me to follow through. Because then there was those times when I would used to do it, and I would do it, and we would lay the best plans. And
Right.
then like Tuesday night would come, and I'd be like, we don't have the ingredients, right? The worst is when my kids use the ingredients for something like their lunch. And I'm like, who had the spaghetti sauce, right? Like, and so being able to like prepare and have that written for everyone to see can give everyone an idea, like, hey, don't eat that because that's going to be used for Tuesday night's meal.
Right.
But
Right.
I feel like simply just looking at the calendar and figuring out what nights are slow cooker meals or what nights you can have a little bit more time was actually real, like the most helpful
Oh, good.
of being able to make that consistent. But I feel like I still need to work on the S and the P. Like,
Yep. Yep.
just looking at your system, I'm like, I feel like I do all the other stuff, but the S and the P, the shopping, I'm always like, I've got to do it Sunday afternoon. Like that's usually when I do it, but maybe moving it before might be helpful.
Yeah. And you're definitely not alone, Onnie. Like I say, that's where it can fall off a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so just following through with that. But I did have a client I was working with, and we went through the system, and she had kids eating her ingredients too. And what she did was she bought like these little bins, and she just put Monday on the bin, and it was like, don't eat these. So it helped her, and it helped people not eat it.
Oh, what a great idea.
You could even just do a grocery bag, it doesn't have to be a bin. You just put Monday, don't eat. Right. So, there you go.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Problem solved. Do you recommend, I've heard before about, or labeling each day, or kind of categorizing each day according to like a main ingredient, say like noodles, like where you would stick to like noodle dishes. I know like meatless Monday is a thing, right? And like maybe sticking to meatless recipes, or maybe do like Mexican on Tuesday. So like you've got like enchiladas, tacos, like, sticking to that Taco Tuesday, right? Like going and kind of theming out each day. Have you ever recommended that, or like found that to be helpful?
Yeah. So what I do with my clients is basically ask them if that is helpful for them, because some people it is, and some people it isn't. Some people want I know what to expect because it helps me plan, or I just like know what I'm making. But some people don't necessarily like the rigidity of that. And so you also, again, don't have to theme every night, right? So if you wanted a couple of themes, but I will say that once I start working with clients and we map this out and they start carrying it out, the theme nights is kind of trying to solve a problem that the system solves, right? So if that's like fun for you, go for it. If it helps like your family know what to expect, go for it. But I have found that is something that, it's a little bit of like a shiny object syndrome, right? It's like, oh, that's going to solve my problem. And it doesn't actually solve the underlying problem. So when we solve that, then if that's a fun thing to add for you, then go for it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. What happens or what advice can you give if you get to the night, like Wednesday night, you planned for something and either something comes up, right, that like kind of derails you, or you're not in the mood for whatever it is you planned, like you're craving something else.
I love this question. I love this question. Okay, so for the first part of your question, I plan, and this is for me personally, although when I ask clients, like how many fresh meals on the table that you just cooked in the week would be meal planning success for you, right? And nobody, I should take that back. I used to say nobody, but several weeks ago, somebody actually said 7 to me. But nobody says I want 7 new meals until I met this one. And she's already doing it, right? Like she's already carrying it out. So, I'm sure there's lots of people out there who do this and they're not necessarily looking for meal planning help. But I rarely hear 7. I rarely hear 6. The most common number is 4 or 5. And so that is kind of the first target with my clients. And a lot of times, even if clients think they want 5 or 6, when they get to 4, they're like, this worked. So the beauty of that, and the reason that's kind of my target number and what I do in my own life is, let's say Tuesday rolls around and life happens. I don't have to make the meal on Tuesday, right? Because I'm not in this rigid system where I have a meal for every single night. And so then if we don't eat it, the ingredients get wasted, right? And so you just move it. You move Tuesday to Wednesday. And again, the theme nights, if you get real stuck to that, then this kind of, that's what I would say. First of all, is the system is flexible in that regard, because you can move them around. As far as not feeling like what you planned, this is something that, again, the flexibility of the system can help you there. But I do have, moms that come to me and we're talking about working together, and they're like, I really just don't like to meal plan because I don't feel like what I've planned. And what I say to them is, if your goal is to basically feel like what you're about to eat and give your taste buds whatever it is they want in the moment, right, then perhaps meal planning isn't for you, right? If that's really what you're going for. And this also kind of takes into account your kids come home and they say they want something, and like, where's your boundary there? Right. Because then either your taste buds feel like something or they say something and you don't have the ingredients, right? Because you didn't plan for it. So then you got to go to the store. Right. So there's a little bit of just what's the goal? Like maybe you have one night where you're like, okay, tonight is open and it's a little bit lighter day. So I'm going to run to the store. What do we want? So if you really want to incorporate that into the week, but if you really are somebody who wants to make different meals for different kids for what they feel like in the moment, or for yourself, right? Then I would say, then planning ahead, isn't necessarily going to work for you.
Right. That's so funny, because even the way you put it, I was like, who would want that? Like, so bad, but I'm like, that sounds like a lot of like more work.
Yes. Like, it is more work. And it's funny, Onnie, because it really is one of those things that people bring up, and it's like, to your point, they kind of don't even mean it. They're just like, okay, pushing the boundaries of this meal planning thing.
Yeah.
What can it do for me? Like totally valid question, right? But then when we talk about it, it's like, yeah, you're right. I want the benefit of planning ahead and being prepared more than,
Yeah.
I feel like
Choose your hard. Choose your hard.
So
yeah, and I think even when you said like the start small, like just do like a few nights a week, it still leaves room to be able to switch things around and say like, okay, well tonight, we were going to cook this, but nobody's really in the mood for it. Let's move that to a different night and figure out something else that we have in the cabinet, because there's no way. I'm like, that's how with my husband, he's like, when he's ready to cook, like he'll be like, well, I'll just go to the store and get it. And I'm like, well, that's all on you, because I cannot be bothered doing that. We're gonna cook what we have here. What other tips or any last minute advice that you can give us for those that are that want to take a stab at meal planning?
Yes, excellent question. So one thing that we're kind of getting at, but haven't necessarily talked about directly, is one thing that I hear from moms all the time is they want variety in their meals, right? And you don't want to like open Google, right? Let's say you're doing Think Ahead Thursday, opening Google and just being like, Google, what should I eat next week? Right. Or Pinterest, right? That's very overwhelming. That's like a lot of choices. Right. And then to some degree, you're shooting in the dark a little bit about what your family might like, right? Because that comes up as well. We're not trying to be short order cooks, but it would be nice to cook my family something that they like. Right. And there's a balance there. So one thing that I start working with my clients on right away is creating a recipe hub. And what this is, and most moms come to me with some family favorites that kind of kicks this off. They might be eating them too often, right? And they're in their family favorite rut. But we're going to add some more to it. So there's more variety, but you want to start creating a recipe hub that is recipes that not only your family likes, but take care of yourself in this and make your recipe hub recipes you're confident making. You have the tools, you understand the ingredients, like they're simple. Now I'm not about like 5 ingredient or less recipes or 15. Like it doesn't have to be that. I just want you to be comfortable with the recipes, because what I have and what my clients have after they work with me is I use a hard copy binder, but you could do digital. When I get to Think Ahead Thursday, I have a binder that I open up and I'm like, I know that every single one of these recipes, I know how to make. It doesn't take me 10 years in the kitchen and my family likes it, right? I can't guarantee you that your teenager is going to like everything, every cut, right? But they've been hits with my family before. Right. And so this is because decision fatigue is one of, another really big thing I hear in meal planning is I don't want to decide what to make. And when you create this recipe hub, it's pretty big. You have variety, but you get to choose from it without wondering about the recipes. And so start with your family favorites, but actually put the recipes somewhere you can locate, because people are like, oh yeah, I have recipes that I like. And I'm like, where are they? Oh, well, I bookmarked it, but I don't know. Right. Or I saw it on that food blog. Right. And those kinds of things aren't helpful. Like get the recipe, be able to get your literal or digital hands on it and start making a collection that you can go to. And you can open it up and say, all of these recipes I know are going to be good for me and good for my family.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm just thinking of mine, like because over the years I've gotten rid of like a lot of my cookbooks and stuff, and so I think I still have like 8 to 10 that I kind of pull down, and one of them is that like family recipe, like just all these little pockets and stuff, and that's like my go-to thing. But I'm like, I really need to clean it out and kind of get together like what do my family enjoy, because I do pull out from that probably about once a week, but then some I have online. Like there's other things like I have chicken defrosted, like okay, what am I going to do with the chicken? And I go to all recipes and like start looking at chicken recipes, but really just narrowing down, because that decision fatigue is real. The struggle is real with that, and
100%.
Having that hub makes sense, and it seems like it would definitely contribute to making it mealtime simpler.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have a gift for our audience or for the listeners?
I do. It's a meal planning guide. It's a done for you meal plan. And it is lunches, snacks, and dinners planned for you. Some simple recipes. You get a little taste of, the kind of recipes that I give my clients. And yeah, it will walk you right through 7 days of meal planning. It is a 7-day meal planning guide, right? Which I see the irony there. But people are like, when they're first looking for meal planning, that's what they're looking for. Right. And then when they work with me, we talk through that, but it is 7 days, and pick the days that you want and cook the ones that you want, and you don't have to do them all. But yes, that is a free gift that I would love to share with your audience to kind of get them started.
Awesome. Thank you. I will go ahead and put the link to that in the comment section in the show notes. We talk a lot about self-care, and we want to know, what is your go-to self-care practice?
Oh, so besides meal planning, because meal planning is 100% self-care, we get a local newspaper every week, and there is a crossword puzzle in it. And I make the agreement with myself that I'm going to do the crossword puzzle every week because I love crossword puzzles. And so I take time in my week every week to do the local crossword puzzle. And that is one way that I've just kind of like agreed with myself, and just set that boundary. And some other things I like to read, but sometimes that time kind of goes somewhere, but the crossword puzzle time is for sure.
Do you typically like complete it?
Yeah,
that's impressive.
I mean, that's why I say, like, it's my local paper. It's not like the New York Times crossword. But I mean, I would say about 50% of the time I get 100%, and then most of the time I'm about 90-95% there. So,
I'm all about the Sudoku in the paper. That's my little section. What book can you recommend?
So, I knew you were going to ask this question, and I was just like racking my brain. Like, I've read a lot of books that are just like, I'm not necessarily, I would love to recommend it. But one, I was looking at my bookshelves, and one that this is very telling for me, because I'm the kind of person like gets rid of stuff. I'm just like, get rid of it when I'm done with it. And one book that stays on my shelf, it's called Laugh Your Way to Grace.
Okay.
It's written by a woman named Susan Sparks. I guess she's a reverend, but it is not necessarily like a denomination or religion specific. She's just talking about bringing laughter and like a lightheartedness into your spirituality. And it just always, I mean, stuff can get heavy, right? Life can get heavy. And like, I don't know, I like books about like organize this and meditate about this, like all of those things that feel a little bit more rigid to me. But this is just like a really good, just like, life is funny. Right. And so it helps. I reread it every so often, and it just kind of brings me back to like, it's just, everything is not as serious as perhaps I make it.
Kare, where can listeners find you?
The best place to find me is in my Facebook group, which is Practical Meal Planning Moms. I'm hanging out there a lot, and we are talking about meal planning. I share weekly recipes. We're encouraging and supporting each other in creating that meal planning habit that makes it all easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and being our guest.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.